Every year, hundreds of thousands of visitors tour Carlsbad Caverns National Park. They come for the experience of seeing one of the world's premier caves, the fantastic formations, and the incredible evening bat flights. But they bring something with them, something not so welcome, something they leave in the cave. We've all had to clean lint out of our dryer traps. Just one dryer load generates a lot of lint. But clothes constantly shed lint regardless of where we are. Caves become the recipient of this unintended donation. Of course, Carlsbad is not the only cave with this problem, but it was the site of the first major lint cleanup project. In addition to Carlsbad, lint abatement programs have been initiated at Mammoth and Jewel Caves.
Pat, whose idea was Lint Camp?
Oh, that started in about 1985 when I was introduced to one of the cave specialists at Carlsbad Caverns, John Roth. And we were taking out portions of the Texas Trail in the big room. One day he said, I'd like to take you over and show you something real quick if you wouldn't mind. And took me over to the Rock of Ages, and he bent over the retaining wall and picked up this clump of stuff and brought it up and said, "What do you think this is?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "Well, it's lint, and it's coming into the cave off of the visitor, and I think it's actually a pretty serious problem. And I'm looking for somebody to take on that type of a project. Would you be interested?" And I kind of laughed at him and said, "Well, I don't know whether I want to go around picking belly button lint." That's actually what I said. And he said, "Well, think on it for a few days." Well, after a few days of hauling tons and tons of rubble from the old Texas Trail, I thought that it was a much more attractive proposal, and that was the beginning of the lint cleaning project.
Excellent. Well, how did the project come together?
It first began as a conservation restoration project through the Denver Museum of Natural History, which is now the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, as a tour. You'd pay money and we'd take you down to Carlsbad and take you off trail portions of the cave, and then while you were there you would help do some restoration work, which was picking lint off of the cave along the trails.
How did the project move from basically an aesthetic conservation activity to one where you were doing detailed research studies?
Well, a couple of years into the lint cleaning project, one of the cavers that was on the project came and said, "We have something terrible we need to show you, and we're so sorry that this has occurred." And so they took me into the King's Palace area and showed me a formation, and the formation was badly eroded. And they said, "We've discovered that after we took the lint off of this formation, that this formation was corroded and was very mushy and in terrible shape." And we began to ponder why this was occurring and how it was occurring. And we went to the Park Service and showed them the problem, and we suddenly began to realize that lint was not just an aesthetic problem, but one that was allowing for the dissolution of formations. And the Park Service became concerned about that, and that was the beginning of the research that was to happen. Wind Cave National Park was the National Park Service cave that picked up the proposal, and it turned into a federal research grant for a couple of years, and the participants or the investigators were myself, Bill Yett, and Sandy Kramer.
It was necessary to determine the composition of the lint. Additionally, it was important to understand the mechanisms of lint introduction and distribution in the cave. Studies also included various control mechanisms and trail design. Utilizing maps of Carlsbad Caverns, lint deposits were carefully plotted along the visitor trail. It was revealed that trail configuration, curbing, or lack of curbing, and air currents in the cave play an important role in the deposition of lint along the trail. A year-long survey was conducted on the types of fabrics worn into the cave by visitors. Comparisons were made with national studies of fabric types with ratios and percentages of fiber types. Very careful and tedious microscopic examinations and identification of fibers was completed of lint deposits taken from the cave. Conclusions show that natural fibers break down faster and are often utilized as a food source, whereas synthetic fibers remain in the cave environment for an indefinite period of time. Biological systems were examined next. Petri dishes with various culture mediums were set to trap organisms that might be present. We found that there were high-energy surface organisms present that have adapted to the cave's normal low-energy biological system. Next studied was how lint migrates into and along the visitor trail. An uncommon and uniquely colored felt fiber was shredded and introduced along the visitor trail. Once a tour of visitors had passed, the amount of seeded lint was examined for migration distances along the trail and away from the trail. The seeded lint was put in place where curbs were present and where curbs were not present. The results were dramatic. Lint can and does migrate with the currents generated by visitors as they pass along the trail, sending it in all directions for 3 or 4 feet off trail and up to 20 feet depending on air currents. Of necessity, lint picking is all volunteer work, and often visitors on the trail ask what we are doing. For most of the work, the tools of the trade are simple. Fortunately, lint tends to stick to brushes. Because of the optical brighteners used in many laundry detergents, lint accumulations glow brightly under a long-wave ultraviolet lamp, making them easier to see and pick up. For a time, vacuuming was tried. Vacuuming is a preferred method of cleaning, as sweeping with a broom or brush sends dust and lint airborne and further off the trail. The vacuum cleaner needs to have a HEPA-type filter. On the downside, vacuuming does not work well in a wet environment, as the filter tends to get clogged frequently. Compressed air was also tried in combination with the vacuum. Vacuuming visitors before they entered was first tried at Wind Cave National Park. This obviously was time-consuming and not very popular with the vacuumees. Also tried were lint rollers, but they too were rejected for the same reasons. A thorough video documentation was completed for each phase of the study.
This is just little minor bits, believe it or not, even though they're pretty big deposits here. I'll gradually scan up 5 feet or more. And this little ledge, look at that. That's just unbelievably amount of lint. Unbelievable amount.
Lint picking can even require technical rope work.
On the other side.
Yeah, pro lint brusher. Find a big clump there, just bring it out real slow. Hold it there. Hold it right there. Bring it down a little bit. Oh yes, into the bag.
Spraying with water can be effective depending on the types of formations. Both backpack and hand sprayers were used. The process may require the removal of the water with sponges. You can see how removing the lint has made a noticeable difference in these formations. In some cases, damage can be seen that was caused by corrosion.
Do you think you're making progress against the lint in Carlsbad and other commercial caves?
Most definitely. The very first year that we picked lint, we were able to pick up handfuls of lint along the trail everywhere that we went. And even though you always are generating lint when you go into a cave, whether it's a wild cave or a National Park Service cave, any commercial cave, you're generating lint because lint is made up of the fibers off the clothing that you're wearing. It is part of the hair that comes off of us and dead skin cells. So it's going to always be there.
As strange as it may sound, volunteers have had a great time doing this work. After a day of lint picking, the volunteers head back to the Park Service cabins to fix dinner and enjoy each other's company.
Hello, hello. Dinner, one of the cooks, the master chef here. Turn around, I can't see you.
Go with your Oklahoma.
Chief bottle washer.
Chief bottle washer, salad maker, and yapper.
We certainly don't want to give the impression that this is all
Mark.
work.
Pat, I love you.
Oh, we had an enjoyable trip finding those entrance lanes. Let me tell you that.
Did you?
Goldward, and then, just go right.
Did you find them though?
Yeah, we found them.
Wednesdays are a free day, and many use it to experience some of the area's great parks, caves, and hiking trails. Displayed here is the lint collected during the 1991 lint camp. This is over 20 pounds of lint and associated debris.
What kinds of things do you think might help prevent lint buildup in the future?
Well, we studied a number of techniques and processes and possibilities when we were doing the research. We even went to NASA and spoke with them about their ways of controlling lint and the space shuttle systems. There are a number of good possibilities, but all in all, unless you have infinite amounts of money, the simplest and the best way to contain lint is in your curbing and your trail design.
Here are some of the many volunteers who have participated over the years. They have traveled from all over the United States and given freely of their time to conserve Carlsbad Caverns.